the story of pandemics. Do you remember when we told the story of the coming of human beings? We discovered that human beings were very special because they could adapt to their environment. Even though they weren't big and strong with sharp teeth and big claws, instead, humans had three special gifts. Can you remember what they are? A special mind for thinking and for planning, a special heart to show compassion and love, and hands that are free to do work. These three gifts are where this new story begins. You see, something terrible was happening in the world, and it was happening to human beings. People were getting very sick, and many were dying. It seemed like the more people who got sick, the faster other people would also get sick. The three gifts, they worked together to figure out the problem. You see, the mind was clever. She had done a lot of scientific experiments with plants and with animals, and she knew that there are really only four ways that organisms die. One is by blunt force, like when a weed is pulled right up out of the ground. And another is from the failure of some kind of internal organ or internal cells, like when a pet gets old and dies. The third is a little more wicked, because that's when something eats something poisonous or when someone poisons someone else. And the final way is when an external organism enters into the body and makes it sick. The mind could easily rule out the first three options of how to die. Many of the sick people were not injured from a fall or an accident. They were all different ages, and many were perfectly healthy right before getting sick. And it was impossible for that many people to all be poisoned at the same time. The mind was sure that it must be some very teeny tiny thing, something microscopic that would get into the body from outside. And she had a hunch. How can this be happening? Said the mind. It can't be the heart. The heart is on the inside, showing compassion and love for all the people near and far, and many of the things in the world. So that means it must be the fault of the hands. The hands are always touching things and building things, and then when we work so hard, the hands wipe the sweat from our brow after all of that hard work. But the hands are also the ones that could be moving something from outside of the body to the inside. So the mind had figured out that one of the many ways that the illness was being spread was by the hands. But this is just part of the story. You can see when a person gets sick from tiny microscopic organisms that enter their body, that those microbes could enter in many different ways. One of them might be by the hand wiping something in. But can you think of other ways? Maybe through the nose, through the mouth, through blood, if you got a cut, or through sneezing. There could be many ways. Once a person, though, gets sick, their body becomes like a factory. It becomes very busy and it makes copies of the sickness and it spreads them around and it tries to get other people to catch the illness. And when a virus, like the coronavirus that we have right now, is very good at doing this, it can become a pandemic. The word pandemic comes from ancient Greece, and it means pan means all, and demic means people. So it means that all the people of the world can get the sickness. It doesn't mean that those people will get the sickness, but it means that they could get the sickness, and it's moving around the world. But in this story, there are also heroes. There are people who help. There are people like doctors and nurses who serve those that are sick by making them comfortable, giving them medicine, and making sure that they have what they need. People like supermarket workers and truck drivers that make sure everyone can get food. And people like scientists and researchers who are busy looking for a cure or a way to prevent other people from getting the sickness. We may never know the names of many of these heroes, but there are millions of them out there, and they're helping during the pandemic. Some diseases, such as malaria, which is spread by mosquitoes, still does not have a cure. But some of those heroes are very famous because they did find cures. Some of the ones that have helped find solutions for some of the most terrible plagues or pandemics in our history. Such diseases such as smallpox, measles, mumps, or polio. You could look up the stories of those people. The pandemic that we are all facing today is called the novel COVID-19 pandemic. This pandemic has affected each of our lives and made us rethink some of the everyday activities that we do, such as hand washing, sneezing into our arm, how we shake our hands with each other or give high fives. What other things have changed because of the pandemic? I'm sure that you could think up quite a few. I have a couple of ideas for follow up, and of course, you might think of some other ideas to do as well. One of them would be to build a timeline of pandemics. Look up the major pandemics that have happened in history and build your own timeline at home. You could research more about specific illnesses that were mentioned in this story, or you could look up others that you are interested in. You could research some of the scientists or the doctors that have solved some of the world's pandemics and plagues. You could start a letter writing campaign or some way of reaching out to say thank you to the people who are working to keep us safe, those heroes that we maybe don't know personally, but might see or might have a parent that sees as we are isolated in our homes. Or you could do any other project or and research any other aspect of the story that interests you. Anyway, I'm here with Eureka, who I brought home from school today to be safe, and we say goodbye until next time.